So do you think that there is good and evil, or better and worse? Right and wrong?
100% yes.
What's evil then? Okay, what is evil?
You know, there's a wrong concept that if you're developing yourself spiritually, you take on a sort of an equanimity where everything you see is equal, and that's a absolutely false thing. There's something from the outside, like the brain consciousness projects this idea that it imagines that that's what it's like. In a sense, it's almost the opposite. So, what is evil? Actually, it's very easy to say. In us, there is a very high part of us, our spirit, you can call it, the higher self, whatever you like to say, the real I. Any of these things will do. And it only has a very delicate connection into us and is quite a small influence. But everybody can access that one to some degree. And it won't be able to run your whole life because the external is too strong. So whatever is in harmony with that very delicate, very high thing inside yourself, whatever is in harmony with it and helps it to establish and grow, is good. And whatever is not in harmony with it and blocks its growth is bad.
So can an individual be evil, or is whatever is blocking them evil?
Individual be evil. Well, every person, as to the best of my knowledge, every person has this very, very high, very pure thing inside themselves. So if you take that as the person, then no person is evil. But then they have layers on that. And there may be, some of these layers may be blocking and going against that very high thing in themselves. Some of the intermediate layers, we'll take the body and the brain as the most external layer. The body and the brain may be working, doing exactly the opposite of what this internal part needs, you might say. What's maybe completely out of harmony. And if it goes too far out of harmony, you're murdering, raping, whatever, then it's obviously, we can call it evil.
I think that people ultimately want there to be peace and love and happiness and harmony, but individuals and collectives make so many decisions that are in that opposite direction. And then we have a penal system to punish the evil people or bad people, to try to rehabilitate them. And I don't really see those superficial systems working.
There's no punishment from the inside, as I understand it. The punishment is like an external thing that people have placed on it, where the legal system punishes people. People don't get punished. In fact, they receive when you go against your own internal part, there's no real punishment for it. There's just a result. There'll be a result that you'll need to deal with. That's all.
Oh, I appreciate that. Because that makes me think of society trying to create peace by implying mores and values on a group that the group may not agree with.
Right. Well, that's external morality. It's of just no meaning from an internal point of view.
So, Patrick, do you still have the same intention now behind teaching that you did when you started?
I would say it's just a yes. It's just a more refined, of course. My understanding of what I'm doing is more refined, but the basis of the intention is the same. I began teaching not because I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't really want to teach. I just wanted to learn. But I just came into the situation where people wanted me to teach because I had learned something. And I tried to avoid it in the beginning, you might say. So the Tai Chi people, because I learnt well from a good teacher, then people wanted me to teach them, but really I wanted to just keep learning. So I began to teach. And you know, I've never taught as my living. I refuse to do that, and I've never really taught full-time. There have been periods where I've taught every day, but it's one class a day or something. I've never done 5 classes a day or anything silly like that. But for most of my life, for the last 20 years, for example, 25 years, maybe 30, I only teach seminars, and I maybe teach one every few months. And in between, I usually don't teach. So most of the time, I'm not a teacher. I'm a learner. And I think that's the way it should be, that your learning is the basis of your teaching, and your learning process is more work and time should go into your learning than goes into your teaching. Otherwise it gets out of balance. So first, people wanted me to teach and asked me to teach because they saw I knew something, and then later my teachers asked me to teach. And then later, from inside, I'm asked to teach. So that would be the evolution. That's why I taught, never because I want to be a teacher.
That is great advice, to make sure that you're learning more than you're
right.
teaching. So how will you know that you've been a successful teacher when your time comes to stop teaching?
Well, I might even know before, because you're watching. My aim was always, my idea was, if I can produce 100 competent people, and then each one of those can produce 100 competent people, that's 10,000. And each one of those produce 100. It's just like 3 generations, and we're up to quite a large number. about 1 million people. That's 1 million people competent. That would be a tremendous effect on the world. Now, it's obviously a little bit unrealistic, but that's how I think of it. That's how, without being too over-optimistic, because I think if I spend my whole life and produce 100 competent people, it's not like I'm trying to teach tens of thousands or something like this one, as some people do. And so I mostly limit my core group to 100, and that's, you see, the seminar we're just doing is 100, and I keep it at 100. But that 100 is drawn from a few hundred, because some of them are on and off, coming, going. So I have to have a few hundred in the background, so I can draw 100 and so I will know if it's a success if I do produce 100 competent people who are now passing on something true in a world where there's so much spiritual practices that are really just coming out of the smart brains of people and not really coming down from above.
Do you have any regrets as a teacher?
I don't have any significant regrets. No. I'm just trying to think if I do. Nothing comes to mind.
That's great.
Oh, I mean, I can say at every stage I look at what I'm doing, and it always feels not as well done as I would like, not as much energy as I would like to put into it, not as close to what I feel is perhaps the ideal thing as possible. So at every step I see not perfect by some degree. But that's not really a regret. That's because I accept that, because you just can't make perfect steps.